This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. For CBN NewsWatch, I'm Wendy Griffith. Shocking new sex ed guidelines in California have parents outraged. The state's Department of Education completely overhauled the sex ed program for public schools. Some parents and concerned citizens are angry, saying it's an assault on parental rights. Senior reporter George Thomas is in the newsroom now with details. George.
That's correct. One parent described the 700-page document made public on Wednesday as pornography and said if something's not done to stop the guidelines from taking effect, she's not sending her kids to public school anymore. Among other things, the new guidance encourages teachers to talk about gender identity with kindergartners, including telling teachers that kindergartners can identify as transgender. The guidance gives tips for discussing puberty with transgender teens that creates, quote, an environment that is inclusive and challenges binary concepts about gender. It also encourages teachers to give advice to LGBT teenagers on relationships and safe sex. The guideline urges teachers to talk openly about masturbation with middle schoolers. LGBT advocates are praising the move, but parents and conservative groups call it an assault on parental rights. Jonathan Keller, head of California Family Council, said in a statement that California, quote, should not force moms and dads to choose between participating in public school and protecting their children's innocence. No student needs to be exposed to this graphic and explicit material. It's child abuse.
Our children, the image is they are made in the image of God.
The California Department of Education released a statement saying, our priority is to make all children feel comfortable at school, dispelling myths, breaking down stereotypes, and linking students to resources can help prevent bullying, self-harm, feelings of hopelessness, and serious considerations of suicide. Department administrators say schools are not mandated to use the guidelines, and students can opt out from lessons about sexual health if they choose. Still, Phil Cohen, a Sacramento-based radio talk show host and grandparent, is outraged, saying these are subjects that should be addressed at home and not in school.
I have a grandson who's coming up on 2 years old, and I'm concerned for him, as we all should be. Sadly, we have a bunch of people in our state legislature, many of whom don't even have kids, but they're all too willing to signal their progressive virtue by brainwashing yours.
Some of the books the guideline recommends students read is also getting pushback from concerned citizens. One suggested book for high schoolers is Sex, the all-you-need-to-know sexuality guide to get you through your teens and 20s. Wendy.
Wow. Thank you so much, George. Well, joining us now by phone to talk more about this subject is Rebecca Friedrichs. She's the founder of For Kids and Country, an author, and has been a public school teacher for 28 years. Rebecca, thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me today.
Well, tell us about the debate that led up to these new California guidelines being adopted.
Well, the problem is, and unfortunately teachers don't realize it, that the state and national teachers unions are pushing and funding a very radical sexual agenda, and they're doing that using teachers' dues money. So the first thing they did was push for something called AB 329, which led to the California Healthy Youth Act. That act, that law, became law on January 1st, 2016. And with it came these horrific curriculums that are exposing children to anal and oral sex, among many other things that I can't even say on the airwaves. And teachers are mortified, parents are horrified. We're all fighting back.
Rebecca, real quick,
yes.
One parent said it's just scary what they're going to be teaching and called it pornography. Would you agree with that?
I would agree 100%. When you look at the books that they are recommending through the health framework that they unanimously adopted yesterday, some of these books have photographs. Now, they do it like a cartoon, but photographs of a man and woman in bed having sex, photographs of children looking at their genitalia. I mean, it's totally inappropriate.
sorry to cut you off. Who's behind these guidelines, and who supports this?
Yeah, well, it's the California Teachers Association, along with the National Education Association, American Federation of Teachers, state and national teachers unions. It's the ACLU. If we push back, they threaten to sue school board members. It's the Southern Poverty Law Center, who puts people, labels us haters if we dare to push back to protect our kids. It's Planned Parenthood. And shockingly, supporters behind the bill were the PTA and the Teachers Association and the School Board Association.
This is just hard to get your head around. It makes you wonder if any of these people have children. Well, the California Department of Education says it wants to make all children feel comfortable at school, and we hear that a lot. But what impact do you think this kind of teaching will actually have on our young people?
Yeah, well, they push this under the guise of anti-bullying. They're claiming that they're protecting children who are LGBTQ. The problem with that is they are bullying everyone else in order to push an agenda. Look, I taught for 28 years in these schools. We love every single child that comes into our classroom, whether they're LGBTQ or not. We love them all and protect them all. So this is just a smokescreen, a guise to push in an agenda, truly to remove Judeo-Christian values from our schools and to radically change our culture.
Rebecca,
yes.
Sorry, schools are not mandated to use this new framework, right? But do you think it'll be widely used anyway?
Of course it will. They claim they're not mandated, but the California Healthy Youth Act is mandated, and this framework is what guides that. So of course it's going to end up being forced upon children, particularly because the anti-bullying portion, parents cannot opt out. So all kinds of kids from preschool on up are going to be exposed to this stuff.
Do you think many parents will ultimately take their kids out of California public schools over this?
I hope so. And my bigger hope is that teachers will stop funding these unions so we can stop this nightmare and fix our schools, because a lot of parents don't have that option.
Rebecca Friedrichs is the founder For Kids and Country. Thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it. Well, vigils were held in Colorado last night to thank first responders and to honor the school's heroes, including Kendrick Castillo, the student who died protecting his classmates from 2 shooters. Hundreds of students protested and walked out of one of the vigils after Democratic politicians and gun control advocates spoke. The students say they wanted to talk about their classmates. Castillo's father talked about his son's sacrifice.
He did what he had to do, and I knew that was my son's nature. That was who he was. When I see the people that he saved, it makes me happy, and I know that my son wouldn't have had it any other way. But as any parent will tell you, it's a heck of a trade-off.
It sure is. God bless them. Well, the suspects in the attack made their first court appearance Wednesday. There they are. They faced nearly 30 charges, including murder. A new gun bill in Florida makes it easier for teachers to carry guns in schools. Governor Ron DeSantis signed it Wednesday. The move is in response to last year's mass shooting at Parkland High School. The bill expands an existing school program that allows any teacher to volunteer to carry a gun if their school district approves. Teachers who have volunteered have to undergo police-style training and a psychiatric evaluation. Turning now to Washington, the water is reaching a boiling point as the Trump administration and Democrats spar over the Mueller report. Democrats want the full unredacted version, but President Trump, who's invoked executive privilege, and Republicans say they're not going to get it. House Judiciary Chairman Jerry Nadler calls this a constitutional crisis and says the White House is stonewalling Congress in its duty to investigate. Meanwhile, the White House is accusing Nadler of a blatant abuse of power. In an explosive hearing yesterday, Representative Jim Jordan charged Democrats with trying to smear and discredit Barr.
I think it's all about trying to destroy Bill Barr because Democrats are nervous he's going to get to the bottom of everything.
Republicans say Barr is required by law to withhold parts of the report that concern grand jury information. Well, trade talks between the U.S. and China are happening today at the White House. China's vice premier will meet with U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer and Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin. It kicks off just a day before tariffs are expected to be raised on Chinese imports. The president set the deadline to raise tariffs to Friday after the U.S. accused China of backing out on its commitment to end their trade war. And we'll have more on these stories and others on Faith Nation this evening. You can see it right here on the CBN News Channel. Coming up, Rick Santorum takes on a CNN host and a liberal analyst about life in the womb. But see how this debate quickly turned into a war on words and faith.
CBN presents The I Wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
We're going to talk about some of the incredible promises God has made to His children.
In Pat Robertson's newest teaching, you'll discover the I Wills of God. I will rescue him, protect him, answer him, be with him in trouble, deliver him, honor him, satisfy him with long life, show him my salvation, and see amazing stories of God's promises in action.
What I felt was loved and treasured.
God spared my life twice in 3 days.
The good Lord had given me a second chance.
Break free from stress and despair.
The Lord doesn't want you to live in fear, but to know the rewards given to those who love God.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or visit CBN.com. The I Wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
Alabama lawmakers have postponed a vote on a proposed abortion ban after anger erupted in the state Senate Thursday. Senators were set to approve a bill that would make performing an abortion at any stage of pregnancy a felony. But shouting broke out after some Republican senators moved to strip exceptions from the bill. The bill was tabled. The vote is expected to take place next week. Well, on Monday, CNN ran an interview by host Chris Cuomo with former U.S. Senator Rick Santorum and CNN political contributor Christine Quinn. They spoke about states that are passing more restrictive abortion laws. After a heated exchange over when life begins, Quinn said something a lot of people find shocking.
When a woman gets pregnant, that is not a human being inside of her. It's part of her body. And this is about a woman having full agency and control of her body and making decisions about her body and what is part of her body with medical professionals.
Joining us now with a reaction is Catherine Glenn Foster with Americans United for Life. Catherine, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, the argument that a pregnancy is just a blob of tissue, which we just heard there, has really been debunked by science, hasn't it?
It sure has. And, it never was a legitimate argument. When you look back at embryology textbooks over the years, over the decades, you see that they pretty much all recognize that, in fact, that thing in the womb from the moment of conception is a human being. What else could it be? It's not a dog, it's not a cat, it's not a car, it's not a building, it's a human being. And it's a separate, unique, distinct human being with its own unique set of DNA, its whole DNA laid out. And it certainly is not any of those things that Christine Quinn might believe that it is. It's not a clump of cells. It's not part of the mother's body. Inside the mother's body, yes, but not a part of it, a separate, distinct human being.
Right. Well, Quinn also said that the decision to end a pregnancy should be made by a woman and her doctor, which is something we hear often. But do women going to a Planned Parenthood clinic for an abortion actually sit down and discuss the pros and cons of abortion with a doctor?
Absolutely not. And that was something that the Supreme Court got wrong on this issue from the beginning. They said this is a decision between a woman and her doctor. That's not the way the abortion industry is set up in America. The way it works is the abortion doctor is not our family physicians. It's not the general practitioner down the street that you go to when you have strep throat or the flu or whatever it might be. This is a separate doctor who really focuses on the abortions. And so, you know, I'm post-abortive. I had an abortion when I was 19 years old, and that's really driven me to do what I do now. But in my experience, and in the experience of so many of the hundreds of women that I've spoken with on this issue, you know, I met my doctor when I was lying on the table in the room and he walked in the door, not during the ultrasound, not during the counseling phase, not during any of those preliminary parts. It was actually when he walked in the door to perform the abortion. And so we were in the same room together for maybe 5 minutes.
Wow, that's so powerful that you can speak from that personal experience. Well, do you feel that there's actually momentum now on the pro-life side of the abortion debate? I just read that story about Alabama lawmakers trying to make it a felony there to have an abortion at any level. What do you think about that?
There is so much momentum right now. It's really astounding when you look at the makeup of the Supreme Court and of the entire federal bench, all of the good jurists who are getting appointed and confirmed. That is incredible. When you look at the polling and how a majority of Americans want major rollbacks on abortion, 75% of Americans want major rollbacks on abortion, 80% of Americans oppose late-term abortions, even 66% of pro-choice Americans, according to a poll that we conducted in partnership with YouGov, we found that 66% of pro-choice Americans oppose late-term abortions. So there are so many areas of commonality, areas where we can work together and start rolling back abortion in our country. Best of all, though, the abortion rate is now the lowest it's been since 1972, the year before Roe v. Wade legalized abortion nationwide, coast to coast, 9 months, any reason. And it's astounding to me that now with abortion legalized more or less nationwide, we're still at that same level as in 1972 when it was just a handful of places.
Wow, that's very significant. I didn't know that. Thanks for letting our viewers know. Catherine Glenn Foster with Americans United for Life. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Coming up, 11 days, 3 shooting massacres and a number of lives lost. But these victims are being hailed as heroes. We break down why their heroism could be inspiring a change in America's hearts when we return.
It's about the competition.
I kind of put that pressure on myself, and I think people had expectations.
It's about overcoming.
We use this phrase all the time, keep chopping, keep practicing hard.
It's about going the distance.
You know, I think as a father, it's my job, you know, to lead, just be the best husband and father I can be.
Watch Going the Distance with Sean Brown Saturday night at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
Hillsborough Falls man, come.
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes, too. And so much more! Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon! It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
Discover the I wills of God. I will rescue him, protect him, answer him, be with him in trouble, deliver him, honor him, satisfy him with long life, show him my salvation.
What I felt was loved and treasured.
God spared my life twice in 3 days.
The good Lord had given me a second chance.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or visit CBN.com. The I Wills of God, the latest teaching from Pat Robertson.
I am Region's first ROTC graduate student.
Well, just last month, Lori Gilbert Kay jumped in front of her rabbi when a shooter entered into a San Diego synagogue and opened fire. And last week, 21-year-old Riley Howell charged a gunman who fired shots into a University of North Carolina Charlotte classroom. And Tuesday, Kendrick Castillo lunged at a fellow student who had pulled a gun in a class, giving his friends more time to take cover. All three lost their lives in these acts. It's a common thread of bravery that is saving the lives of others. But what makes these heroes decide to stop these acts at the expense of their own lives? Here to answer that question and more is CBN Police Chief Chris Mitchell. Chief Mitchell, thanks for being with us.
It's great to be with you.
Great to see you. You know, it is, wow, it's so encouraging to see these young people, you know, saving their students, but they're putting their own lives in danger. Why do you think these young people are doing this now?
I think in our society, we've seen enough of this, and everybody's had enough. And this is an example of the American spirit to me, where people are willing to sacrifice their life in the defense of others. And they immediately respond, as Kendrick did. Immediately he responded. There wasn't a hesitation. There was a response because he knew the outcome would be that so many others would be hurt or killed.
You know, it's sad because this was how many, 3 shootings in less than 2 weeks or even 1 week. Do you think we're getting used to this? I mean, it's on the news all the time. Are we getting, you know, are we at the point now where we're just going to turn off the TV?
I would hate to think that. I think that this should be a shock to us every time it happens. It should never become, we should never become inoculated to the horror that this creates. And it's not just the incident, but it's the lasting effects it's going to have on people for, you know, years to come, having gone through these circumstances, not to mention the families that lose loved ones in the process.
Yeah. Well, certainly, unfortunately, it's not going to probably be the last time we talk about this report on that. What are some safety measures that people can take if they're in similar situations?
Well, once again, we must be aware of our surroundings and always know where we are when we're there, because wherever you are, that's where you are, and you have to be ready.
Know where the exit door is.
You know where the exit door, you know what your response is going to be in the case of a situation, always looking for things that are out of the norm, or situation, people or things that could, you know, remind you or cause you to think that something's not right, and then being prepared. And just in the response of Kendrick, he was prepared. Even in the midst of that, he had no idea. It was a student that was in his classroom that he had seen before, but all of a sudden it happens, and then what are you going to do? And you have to think that through and be prepared to do that when it happens.
How do you make the call whether to charge the student that's holding the gun at you or take cover somewhere else in the room?
I think it really depends on proximity and opportunity.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm close enough that I can engage with knowing that I'm going to be able to do something, I try. If not, then it comes to I'm trying to hide. If I can't hide, you know, it always comes down to if everybody else is going at him, there's only so many that he can get, you know, or he or she could actually hurt or harm if everybody attacks.
What do you think about more teachers actually carrying handguns? I mean, you've got a gun on you right now, but you're trained. You're well trained at using a gun. What do you think about teachers having guns?
I'm very cautious of that because of the training that I would think that have to be involved in the for a teacher to take on that responsibility and being able to execute in the midst of a crisis. You never know what you're going to do until you're faced with it.
Sure.
So I'm just very careful with that. I don't disagree which schools that do it necessarily, but I think it needs to be studied a little bit more before we make a final determination.
If I'm not mistaken, I think there was an off-duty officer at the synagogue,
correct,
right, who had a gun. So,
yes,
and that was a good thing in that case. So, you know, yeah, more study needs to be done on that.
We thank God for those that know how to serve and that have served. Yes.
Amen. Thanks so much for your insights.
Great to be with you.
Well, coming up, hear why this sweet meeting between friends is warming hearts just ahead of Mother's Day.
As the world watches from the outside,
it's a big diplomatic tug-of-war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline, Friday night at 9:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
Meet the pastors who are preaching the gospel in a fresh, fearless way. I'm Roberto Torres-Cedillo. Join me each week for Next Gen Voices. And watch God transform a generation.
Region's first ROTC graduate student.
A photo of Today Show alum Kathy Lee Gifford meeting her former co-host Hoda and her baby girl is warming hearts just in time for Mother's Day. Little Hope Catherine is Hoda's second adopted baby. Kathy Lee left the show last month after 11 years. "Looky who came to say hi," she said in a caption of the photo on Instagram. The sweet photo also includes Hoda's 2-year-old daughter, Haley Joy, whom she adopted back in 2017. Last month, the Today Show host surprised her colleagues and fans with news about adopting Hope. Other members of the Today family have also visited with the little bundle of joy. Very sweet. Well, for more stories about moms, tune into our special Mother's Day special on Prayer Link. The program airs Friday on the CBN News Channel. You can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care about most at cbnnews.com. And tell us what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can do that by emailing us at newswatch@cbn.com or talk to us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We hope you'll join us next time. Until then, have a great day. God bless.